Today, we're shining a light on something deeply personal yet universal: mental health. Whether it's the weight of daily stress, a personal setback, or even a broader emergency like a post injury recovery, these moments can shake our mental well being. So, in honor of World Mental Health Day on October 10th, we're exploring how to stay resilient, find sustainable support, and know when and where to seek help. Plus, for everyone who stays to the end, you'll learn how to double your entries to our spectacular subscriber giveaway worth hundreds of dollars. If you haven't already subscribed to more entertaining and important content, like the 3 big ideas we are going to discuss, hit that subscribe button now. Today, we are going to cover 3 big ideas. First, prevention strategies to foster mental resilience. Second, long-term solutions for sustainable support. Third, identifying when help is needed and where to turn for resources. Welcome to Beyond the Bar by Feller and Wendt, where we dive into lifestyle, entertainment, and the things that make life meaningful. I'm Brian Hansen, and I'll be your host. Joining us today is a true changemaker, Jay Toby, founder and CEO of Northstar Recovery and Wellness. Jay, your team is revolutionizing behavioral health and facilities that offer everything from counseling to holistic care, helping people rebuild after addiction and mental health challenges. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we definitely want to dive into your company and everything that you do, but we want to learn a little bit more about you and maybe get some background on Northstar as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Northstar Recovery, where you're at, and all the locations.
Wonderful. So Northstar was really founded on the principle that people should have long-term access to care and services. And so making sure that recovery, whether it be mental health, sobriety, is not just a one-time event, but we understand that it's a long-term, lifelong process. And so we really wanted to build with that fundamental foundation to make sure that we can really meet people at where they're at, not just at the beginning, but all through their entire continuum. It's called a continuum of care, or their process of recovery. And so I invested in a facility back in, I think, early 2020, which was mainly focused on helping kind of Medicaid clients. It was in Ogden, and it became a huge passion for me. It started off as a business venture. I was going to be passive. And then, as we all know, COVID hit, which caused a few of us to get more involved. I was probably the most active on the board, and I learned about this industry, and it became a massive passion for me. I didn't grow up in a household that had, mental health challenges or substance abuse challenges, but I just saw how much it affected so many people around me and just the community at large. And so the grand vision of this is really making a large platform so that we can help the most amount of people that are looking for services.
Awesome. And you have services and locations throughout the state?
Correct. We started with one facility that I invested into, and right now we're actually in a large acquisition phase, and so we are buying facilities throughout the Wasatch Front.
Out of curiosity, what did you do before 2020, before you got involved in this world of mental health?
Yeah, I've always been super interested in the investing world. And so I started my career working for a property management company up in Logan, Utah. Great place to grow up. And through that experience, I was able to go to a lot of conferences, meet with a lot of investors. And so it piqued, again, I was always just super curious about getting into investments. And so I started making some investments. We did like 2 house flips. Then I realized I didn't want to walk through kind of trashy houses all day, because usually you have to take a home and convert it into something the average person would want to live in. And we invested into some crumbles up in Washington and Oregon.
That blew up.
Yes, coming from Logan, that was a great story to to watch. We were early in the cookie wars when no one in the whole country cared about them. There was a couple companies in Logan just duking it out. So that was really interesting to watch. And investing in multifamily. And so I was continuing to do that while kind of for free on the side. I wasn't getting paid anymore, became more and more involved in this rehab facility. And I started realizing all the skill set I was learning when investing in other companies and investing in multifamily could be translated to the behavioral health industry, and that it was massively fragmented and needed a lot of help. And so that's what I was doing before, and kind of made the light bulb moment of saying, wait a sec, I have all the tools in my tool bag to really go help this industry.
Nice. Well, let's jump into it. We want to focus on three main topics today, and I'm going to start with some talking about prevention strategies. And give us an idea of what daily habits that people can adopt to build mental resilience.
Yeah, there are a lot out there. The ones I want to really focus on are being consistent, whether that's consistency within your routine or consistency within your life. Just those small, simple habits stack, whether that be waking up and writing 3 things you're grateful for that morning, or consistent exercise. Those things I feel like really start building and stacking, and you gain momentum.
Speaking of exercise, so how do those lifestyle factors, exercise, nutrition, things that Northstar emphasizes, how do they help prevent mental health challenges from escalating?
Huge. I think over the last few years, what's been interesting is if we were talking about mental health, substance abuse in 2008, it's something you would sweep under the rug. I really feel like there's been a movement and a push towards a healthier lifestyle, being a little bit more open about challenges. So I think nutrition and exercise are so important as a balancing, for a healthy life. Just having that consistent, even just a little bit of light exercise, going on walks, has statistically been shown to lower cortisol levels, release endorphins. I'm not a runner. I don't run,
Me neither.
I run short distances, maybe mile, 2 miles, but the long distance runners, they always talk about the runner's high. Even after just a light walk, I always feel better. If I'm in a funk, I try to just get my body moving.
So speaking of those things, I mean, you mentioned even things like basic journaling, going on walks, but what are some simple practices, and maybe those are great ideas, but things that you could recommend to listeners of the show that they could start today to strengthen their well-being?
One thing I've recently done, and you'll appreciate this as a partner in a law firm, and as a business owner myself, there comes with it a lot of stress. And so one thing I'm recently doing is a breathing technique where you just try to even out your body. You breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, and then out through your mouth or nose. I'm still not sure which one, but I just breathe out for 4 seconds. And I try to do that until I can physically feel my body relaxing, my mind clearing up, and it is a great stress relief for me.
That's something people probably never think about. And it's like you said, it's as simple as it gets. You can do it in any situation you're in. And I love it. I've actually had other people recommend the same thing to me, different breathing techniques. And I know there's more than just one, but just breathing techniques until you can kind of calm your body.
We've got young kids, and so we're trying to teach them to count to 10. I think that's the adult version.
Yeah, no kidding.
When you're in your office and you're like, all right, I can just take a sec.
Great. Let's talk about long-term solutions and kind of where Northstar steps in as a potential long-term solution for people who do struggle with mental health or behavioral issues. What's a common myth about mental health recovery that you think keeps people from seeking out sustainable support?
The word that always comes to mind is weakness. And again, we talked earlier that in the early 2000s, it's been a stigma for a while. It's opening up, but just making sure that recovery is a steps and progression. You never should never feel bad that you're asking for help, because most oftentimes, and we're seeing it, I've had friends commit suicide that if they just took a few steps or let people know, it's about building that supportive community around them.
And, one thing I've noticed in the last maybe 5 years, and I think is probably helpful for you guys, is people coming forward, even famous people, athletes, they're the toughest of the tough. And you see football players now who are willing to talk about mental health and why it's just as important as your physical health. Have you seen those trends change at all, where people are more open to getting help that they might need?
For sure. For sure. I think it comes down to a few things. One of them being the support system around people. It's usually the caregivers that are really the ones heavy laden with trying to find the care. Usually it's those people trying to find, where can my family member go? Where can my friend go? Because they might just be in a place where you just have to keep them safe for a sec. So it really comes down to those caregivers and making sure that it's an easy process for them to find support. But to your point about famous people and just, I can't tell you how many influencers and athletes and all of these people have started speaking about it, which my grandparents would have probably thought was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a stigma, like you said, especially for men. I think that no, we just keep this in, and if you're struggling with mental health, keep that to yourself. That's not something that men do. That the old stigma, and I'm glad that that's changing.
There's a great podcast called, I think, Dad Bods, that they do a great job of destigmatizing things for men specifically.
That's great.
I think women have been more open. Women podcasts, I don't listen to them, but I see clips, and I think they're a lot more expressive in their feelings.
I definitely agree, and I'm glad that that's changing, so that men can have better mental health. I would certainly argue that before, women are much more comfortable speaking about their feelings and therefore mentally stronger than men. I know my wife would agree with that.
And we've seen a trend. It's an unfortunate trend, but men from 30 to I think 50, their mental health and everything is going the wrong direction. We're seeing more suicides in that demographic. And so if you know of someone in that demographic, myself included, just reach out to them and make sure that they know that you're a supportive figure.
How do integrated approaches like combining therapy with holistic tools at Northstar support long-term mental health recovery?
I think it's all about the long term. Now, I don't feel like we're ever going to find a silver bullet, one answer to this entire epidemic that we're in of mental health and substance abuse. But it's trying to create and give the individual more tools in their tool belt. Talking about nutrition, there are people that come to us that their entire lives, they've eaten box mac and cheese. They have no just basic understanding of nutrition. And it might be a long-term historical family background that they come from. And so it's trying to give them, do you want to get your food handler's permit? Do you want to learn about this aspect that is massively affecting your life and will continue for the rest of your life? And so it's trying to give the individual, in the time that they're with us, those tools.
Nice. So that's a great example of how you've helped an individual. Can you share another success story of someone who achieved lasting mental health stability through your program, and maybe what the big difference, or I guess what made the big difference in them changing?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it reminds me of an individual. There was a young man who came to us, and he had years of addiction underneath him, and he had I bet his family situation obviously was not great, and so he came to us pretty broken. Oftentimes we are the end of the road. Our facilities. There's been a lot of money and a lot of time spent in kind of the critical care aspect of this industry. And we are really working on kind of that long-term, how do you take someone from the base and build them back up? But he came to us, obviously very broken. And over the time with us, I believe he wanted to give back, and so he started going back to school, and I believe he's trying to get his own counselor degree, which is fantastic. And that's really the emphasis, is that ripple effect. Hopefully he'll be successful, and I think he's at the start of his journey. And over the years, as he goes, just think of how many people he'll be able to help. I don't know if it was him that made it was ultimately him that made the decision to come, but I'm sure he had a lot of supportive figures around him. And there's just so many people that one individual, if they decide to seek help or restart their life, that it can bless so many people, generations, and it just is that ripple effect.
Let's talk about for listeners out there especially, how do they identify a need, and whether they're the caretaker that's going to help someone find you folks at Northstar, or whether it's them themselves looking inward and saying, hey, I might need some help here. How can I find some resources? So what are key signs that someone might need mental health support, especially after a stressful event or a crisis?
Yes, I wanted to actually have a therapist answer that. And so I just asked because I thought that'd be the best. After a major stress or crisis, it's normal to feel off for a while. But when those feelings don't fade, that's when it's time to pay attention. Key signs include constant exhaustion, withdrawing from people, family, friends, changes in sleep and appetite, irritability, or a sense of hopelessness that don't lift. And sometimes it's dramatic. It's not super dramatic. It's just feeling numb or kind of stuck. And what they tell people is this: you don't have to wait until things completely fall apart or you're at the end of your road to ask for help. If you're struggling to function, or if you feel life gets heavier than you can just carry, that's the reason enough. So support isn't just for crisis, it's for prevention and healing.
So look for those symptoms, so to speak, that last longer than you might anticipate for a certain event. I also know that you guys help folks that suffer with addiction. Give us an idea of all the different addictions that you guys have treated people for and helped people with long-term solutions there.
So there is a ton. I mean, I think you can get addicted to basically anything. Something interesting, a nugget that I didn't know going into this industry was, I always forget the other drug, but you can detox. Detox is where someone is coming like fully off of substances or any addiction really. But the classic is like the cold sweats, if you've seen it in movies, and they're feeling very, very terrible. But a nugget that I found interesting about addictions is that true alcoholism, like you have to go and detox at the hospital. Like you will literally die. Your heart will stop if you just cold turkey from being a true alcoholic. There's like pretty hardcore drugs that are on the street that we all would know that they can come and cold turkey off of. But something that's readily available, sold in our supermarkets, is a drug that if you abuse it too much, it's like one of the worst ones that can kill you if you just go cold turkey. And I just thought that was so interesting that you can come off meth. There's another one, I just can't remember its name.
Well, and that's where, that gets me thinking about, this getting detoxed from a drug, for example, terrible process. But how often do you hear about, hey, I've been sober for a year, now it's been 3 years, and now I've relapsed, or whatever, multiple relapses, I think, for most folks. So that's where the long-term solution definitely comes back into play with a group like yours.
And it's a constant journey. The people that I've seen, it's trying to provide support to say, hey, if you ever fall down, can you take one step back and 2 steps forward? Really, the system and how it's crafted today is someone can go all the way back to zero, burn their entire life down if they so choose. And it's what I love about it is it's very inspirational to me to watch someone because within the space, it's not just like you're healed or you're cured today. It's that long-term journey. So even if they relapse or have another mental health episode, it's pretty inspiring to me that they seek out help. And I think what's great about our care system and the others that are really addressing this problem are the tools they're trying to give people. So hopefully that if something happens, they feel comfortable and they know better tools and resources to go seek for help than when they started their journey. It's how quick can we get them, boom, back on the path.
So in my world as a personal injury attorney, we definitely deal with mental health issues. People are in serious wrecks. People have serious health issues. And, one of the big things that we do see is PTSD-like symptoms. And one of the things that I've talked to many clients about is if you're having anxiety driving, even just, you never had it before, now you're having it, let's have you go talk to someone. And they always would push back like, oh, I don't want to go sit on a couch, talk to my therapist. And they struggle with thinking it's harder than it is, I think, to get in and get help. So how does Northstar make it easier for people to access mental health care, particularly those who are going to be hesitant to seek help?
With our multidisciplinary approach, what we're trying to do is make it so that we meet you where you are. So you might not have to check in for a 30, 45-day inpatient stay. We have many different levels of care and many different, opportunities and programs available. And so what we're trying to do is just make sure that you, like I said, kind of get started. The first step is the most important step. Whether or not you stay with it for, like you said, a client could probably go to just a handful, of therapy sessions or meeting with someone. Some might, they might need some medication to address that, or just give them some tools. Like I said about the breathing, that these guys see this every day. And so they know what tools to equip someone with to help them.
Do you offer any type of telehealth options where people can appear virtually?
We do. Yeah. The best way to do it is reach out through NorthstarRecovery.care. And we have telehealth options so they don't have to physically go in person. That's one of the best things that probably happened since COVID is your medical health, your medical care, your mental health. It all became way more accessible and way more.
Yeah, everything became easier to do in your pajamas ever since COVID. So,
which I'll say, probably, mental health would be easier to talk about in the comfort of your own home, in your pajamas.
Nice. So for someone nervous about taking that first step, what encouragement would you offer to connect with resources like Northstar or even like the 988 Lifeline?
Oh man, those resources are incredible. There's even a major song. They've changed the number now, but like I didn't even realize when I got into space, Logic has a song where he talks about mental health crisis, and he named the song the emergency line for mental health. The music artist, but those resources are there, and for those that are nervous, I would just say have some faith, step into the darkness, take that leap of faith. Anything that is worth doing is usually nerve-wracking up front. Becoming a lawyer like yourself, there was probably some level of anxiety that came with that decision. You're making a big life step. So I would just encourage others. And if you know of someone, that's struggling, these resources and these lines that have been set up are there to just help that individual. They can give you advice on how to help that individual. Because that's probably the biggest thing that I see personally, because I'm not obviously working, all the referrals and everything that come in, are people that say, hey, I know of someone. What can I do, or how can I help them get resources?
That is a great point. I don't think people think about like the 988 health or Lifeline. And if folks don't know, that's the suicide helpline. Even if you're not the one having those thoughts, but you have a close friend, family member that you think may be struggling with that, they can call that number and get help on how to approach that with a friend, it sounds like.
Yes, yes, for sure. There's a lot of resources for caregivers.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Jay, I appreciate the incredible conversation. As we wrap up this special World Mental Health Day episode, let's all remember that your mental health is worth prioritizing. You men out there, don't be tough guys. Understand. We all need help sometimes, particularly with mental health, which is not so much seen but felt. And no matter where you are in life's journey, don't forget to prioritize mental health. You're not alone, and there's certainly strength in seeking support. Thank you for joining us today. This has been Beyond the Bar by Feller and Wendt. Subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next time.